Hey guys, how's it going? I'm just going to talk to you, Michael. Michael considers himself a classical liberal, so we're just going to talk about that and what it means to him and sort of what other perspectives of it are, right? So I'll just let you start off. What would you say a classical liberal is?
Before I'd even get there, all these conservatism, classical liberal,
Yeah.
I think there's so much grey area there. There's like,
Mm.
I doubt you'd ever get two people on any the same day that agree with all of
Well,
this.
that's the problem with the label is there's what you think the label means, and then there's what I think you mean.
Yeah,
So I
and
judge you.
language,
I judge you based on my idea of it, whereas I should really judge you on your idea of it, but I don't have access to that.
and the
So
only way I can know your idea is if you manage to explain it to me. And
really,
if
really
if
well.
if you're from a different country, you're really well, exactly like
Mm.
there's academics, or if you've had a few beers beforehand, or if
Yeah.
the phone cuts out halfway through, I come away with the wrong idea. So all of this is very wishy-washy as far as I'm concerned. But at the same time, if you are the sort of person that says, "Well, I'm not going to pay any mind to it at all, and I'm not going to try, I'm not going to engage," that's kind of living in bad faith. As I
Mm.
think Jean-Paul Sartre would say, that's living in bad faith. That you're not really making a decent attempt. It's kind of the human condition, isn't it? That we're smart enough to ask the question, but not
Yeah.
smart enough to answer it. And so it's crazy. And
Yeah.
I would hate to think anyone was ever going to hurt anyone or go to war over any of this. Like, what's that JFK thing? We all have the same linkers that we have kids, or that we inhabit the same world or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Those things come first. The idea of
Yeah.
having a huge falling out over this, but it's a bad YouTube video if we don't actually then talk about politics on a politics channel. So
Yeah. So you got to
classical
do it.
liberal. Yeah, okay. Look, I probably put that moniker on myself when I was 21 or something, and more because my parents and the uni I went to, and the first big book, significant book I read was John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. Here we go, fourth edition. My
You.
wife just got that for me for Christmas from 1860s, Pride and Joy. And I didn't, if someone else had read Michel Foucault or Derrida or something like that, then they might have thought themselves something different at 21. So number one, I started out as a classical liberal for a stupid reason, simply because of the thing I was born, and I accept that entirely. And then I've try to critically think that as hard as I can throughout my life. And if anything, I'm moving closer towards conservatism and away from classical liberalism. But yeah, okay, classical liberalism classically gets defined as the John Locke thing, right? The tabula rasa, is that what we're saying? I could write it down, but
Tabula rasa.
that's it. I
Tabula.
couldn't.
I don't know.
It's a
But
good thing about being Australian.
it means blank
Pronunciation,
slate, right?
blank slate.
Blank
Yeah.
slate. That's what it means in Latin.
Yes.
Yep.
And the idea that I'm not born for one role or the other, and I don't believe in the divine right of kings or
Yep.
something like that. That makes me very, very common in this day and age. Although there are some people that still do that sort of thing. I think that I could go on and become any sort of role I wanted to in life, and I get that there's a huge problem with that. That if as citizens we all go to a marketplace and we all decide we want to sell oranges, then people say, oh, well, the price drops very low. Other people say, I'll fall out and I'll sell apples. Other people sell strawberries. Other people sell pineapples until Adam Smith's invisible hand. But
Mm.
when we talk about our own life choices, if everyone wants to be, no one chooses to be the toilet cleaner, right? Or the coal miner or something like that. Everyone says they want to be the CEO that gets all the luxuries and things like that.
Yep.
So there is this certain justice problem I accept with the blank slate, that you give everyone the freedom to do whatever they want, someone has to lose. It's like musical chairs, right?
Yep.
And I get that there's a big justice notion around that, and human rights, or the this minimum wage. They're saying there's like a basic minimum wage or a basic rights for everyone.
Universal basic income.
That's
That one.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
give everyone an education to start with, and everyone. And so I get that classical liberalism has us led us down the path of human rights, and I'm doing a master's in human rights at uni for everyone you want to know, and it's not making any sense. I don't think it works, and I'm further from believing in human rights as of having done it. But I'm trying to approach that side of it. But basically, I think that everyone gets up in the morning and says, "I want to be free." I really think people that say freedom isn't their primary value on the hierarchy of needs, I don't think they've thought about it. The idea that
Yeah.
someone, I mean, if God comes down for us and wants to adjudicate what we should all be, and God is benevolent, and there's no proof that God is benevolent, there's no proof that God exists at all, but assuming a benevolent God comes down, maybe I'll give up my freedom and say, God, what should I be? But that's not going to happen. It's going to be, what's his name? Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein's going to be the guy, or Hitler, or someone who's going to be telling me what I should be. So I
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
freedom first and foremost. And I don't understand these people that don't put freedom
Yeah.
number one in their
Give up
hierarchy
your
of needs.
freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just trust me.
Yep.
You should be.
So I suppose the thing with those sort of people is they probably when you're looking at presuppositions, that's a very tabula rasa is a very modern presupposition. and then they're probably pre-modern where they believe in original sin.
Well,
And I,
the Christians would, but lately there's the social justice guys that. Anyway,
yeah,
I'm sure you'll come to this
social construct. But
because
anyway, so original sin is basically that you're a flawed human being, um, and because you're flawed and you've got silly ideas, you're going to be quite um, if you're left to your own devices, you'll impinge on other people's freedom. And so there's sort of that humility to it, I think. Obviously, this is my own take on it. Um, and so you've got quite a way to go before you are a fully formed person capable of being your own man and not imposing yourself on others. So there, that's one way I see it. And then,
but
of
there's a time and
course,
place to impose yourself on other people. You should stop a bad man from being bad.
oh yeah, yeah. But um, John Locke also, I've only read a bit about his natural law, and that's the idea that there's like the Christians would call it divine knowledge or
Divine
something of
revelation.
divine revelation, and it's the idea that the truth is out there, it's objective, it's universal, and I do agree that there's capitalism is universal. If you can get individual rights going in Africa, it'll thrive. Then the problem is, how do you do that? So I do believe in original sin, but I balance it with tabula rasa, and I agree that we are blank slates
Is
in
thriving.
terms of not in terms of like our biology and like if you're born a man, you're a man, and you got to deal with that. Um, but there's like your experiences are yours, and you've got the free will to decide. Okay, this has happened to me. You've got the free will to decide your reaction, and of course you build yourself out of that, and that's I do agree with tabula rasa as well. So I think for me it's all about balancing original sin, the idea of original sin, and tabula rasa.
I would have a huge problem with someone coming and putting a finger in my face and telling me what I have to be, even to the point that I'm aware that I've got to stop myself from
Yeah, like
reacting
stop
and
smoking. If you were a
yeah,
smoker and somebody came, you got to stop
or
smoking.
drinking or something like that.
You know, it's bad for you, but it's
Who are
got to
you to
be,
tell me?
yeah, it's got to be your decision.
And I got to be
Yeah,
like reacting's not thinking and mimicking is not choosing, and being provoked into doing something's not choosing to do something. So in your whole life, I think young women have a problem with this. Like the patriarchy or something says you must be X, Y, Z, and I think, well, that's actually a pretty good idea. X, Y, Z is not a bad thing to be,
yeah,
but I'm not going to be it because
yeah,
you
yeah.
told me to be. So free will's really bloody hard, and I think
Oh yeah,
it's hugely hard. Like, and how do you even teach someone about freedom that doesn't know about it? I worry about that all the time. But you were saying that in Africa, if you give them individual rights, they'll thrive. But what if it costs them their culture? And that's the discussion at the moment. That okay, they
yeah.
get more money in the bank or whatever it is, or more 3 square meals a day or something like that. But what if they have to give up their link to their ancestor or their land or their spiritual
Well,
land has
that's
to
their
become a
choice, isn't
farm?
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
So what if they don't choose capitalism? Then
Well then,
capitalism's not.
they keep going the way they're going, and if they're happy with that, they
Anyway,
yeah. You can't have capitalism where you don't have individual rights.
yes, and the
Like
individual can choose not to have
if
capitalism though.
somebody can steal somebody else's land because they're the wrong color, then you're not just ruining property rights for the white people, you're ruining it for everyone.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
now nobody can buy a farm in the
The
safety of
rule
knowing.
of law precedes capitalism. There has to
Mm,
be
yeah.
courts and things. That's
So I
right.
think that it's individual rights, rule of law comes before capitalism, not the other way around.
And if the people, say the Aborigine people, choose not to have capitalism, if they look at the argument and think, no, you know what, I'm not going to have it,
Well,
and that's their free
I
choice. That's
suppose
freedom, isn't it?
you're if you're in a country, you sort of got to deal with the overarching reality that's bigger than you. Like
Okay.
if I want to live in Zimbabwe and have capitalism, it's not going to happen. So if I do decide to live in Zimbabwe, you got to know that you're doing it without capitalism, and you got to say, well, okay, what is there? And you can go, well, good fishing, and there's beer, and I can just have a good time, and it's a bit hedonistic, you know. But that's just you got to accept that. And same with Aboriginals. It's you're in Australia, you're in modern day Australia. There's not much. I mean, you can go off into the bush and live out there. That's your freedom, but you can't change the whole system.
No, you can't change the whole
Mm.
system, but you can, even if
It's not
you're
even a system, I wouldn't say. It's just a reality. Yeah,
Daniel thrown to the lions, you can choose to pray. You always have that
yeah,
choice. You can choose to do whatever it is that you want to do. And yeah, I think that that's a lot of what classical liberalism is, so long as you accept responsibility for your own decisions. So
yeah,
if you choose to have beer and go fishing,
yeah.
then you might not ever
And
drive a Mercedes.
if you're hedonistic, you suffer long-term consequences,
Correct. Yeah, yeah. And
and that's your choice.
human beings have always had a problem with that forever
Yeah,
and ever. I don't think it's specific to any
yeah.
particular.
And then I suppose squares are they give up the present for a better future. You know, they work really hard. They don't like work, but they work hard because one day they can retire. And I suppose it's how do you balance it so that your present actions are actually benefiting you in the future.
And the flip side of that is a guy like me that works his guts out in an office cubicle sometimes and dies of a heart attack at 45 and never got to enjoy it. Please, I don't want that to happen, but it might.
Yeah,
But we ask these things. Should we? I want to be free, but it's a selfish way of asking.
Yeah.
I don't think that my own philosophy is that everyone should just be free. You got to ask the society you live in, can you handle or is my freedom acceptable?
Yeah.
Why should my society let me be free? And if my freedom is to commit crime, to assault women, and to just be generally a bastard, clearly society's going to impinge on your freedom very heavily, and it should. And we always, this John Stuart Mills, my man here, was always like, okay, you have freedom, but don't do harm. But I wonder if
the harm principle.
The harm, fuck, that's hard.
Jono, you reckon you can get that down to a sentence?
He says don't do harm, but I wonder if the answer isn't minimize the harm you do.
What is harm?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem. So like freedom, right? What is freedom? Because everybody's got their own definition.
Okay.
So what would you say?
But
where would you draw the line between your freedom and my freedom?
I always think of it like this. If I go and live in a cave and eat dirt, that's the maximum freedom that I can have, but it's not. If I come and live in a society, then I can have banks and police and education and things. And then at this age, I've got so much bloody freedom right now. Honestly,
yeah.
I could fly first class to London if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I could never do that if I lived in a cave. So there's that definition of freedom that the man is never going to stick his foot on my throat, his hobnail boot in my eyes and force me down. And I go live in the cave if I want that. But I'll die at 16.
Yeah.
Or I come here and I accept a portion of the hobnail boot, which technically isn't freedom. But then I get empowered to do these wonderful things like flying first class to London, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So that freedom troubles me there. But coming to your harm principle, okay, if I call a person, if I say sweetheart to a woman, do I do a harm or something like that? Or if I mention the name of a deceased Aborigine, which is offensive.
Yeah, is offense considered harm?
Shit.
You know,
I don't know. And it's how hard you argue it. And then I think if there's two classes of people, just for simplicity's sake, say men and women.
Yeah.
And men say, you can't harm me. You can come at me all you want. I'm never going to sue you. I'm never going to cry. I'm never going to be a victim. And women say, no, if you call me sweetheart, that's harm, and I will sue you in court.
Yeah.
Do they win in the short term, and in the long term, are they not becoming snowflakes?
Yeah.
And are men becoming harder and more durable, and they learn the game better because they're taking the harm and calling it offense? I think about that a lot, and I think that that's probably true. Yeah. I think this victim feminism at the moment is probably going to lead to soft women in the next 20 years or something like that. Step away from the comment section. I'm sorry. We said we wouldn't go there. But they say don't do harm.
Shit, guys. At least we try.
If I walk away from society and go and live in that cave, am I not harming my wife and kids by running away? And even if I do it, you don't have a wife and kids.
No.
If you walk away and live in that cave, are you not harming your what?
Applications below.
Yeah, fair enough if you like what you see.
Not for kids.
Not for kids is better, or as good as. If you go and live in that cave, then is there not this thing that you rob society of the value of you? If you run away, like the MGTOW guys, are they not robbing society, doing us harm? They could be our doctors and our lawyers and things. And so whatever you do, if I don't act because I fear harming someone, am I not harming society anyway by not acting?
Yeah, so it's very tricky. So would you draw the line, between your freedom and my freedom at the classic line from the Declaration of Independence? Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Which, is in that sort of older language, but to me it means life. Like if I kill you, I'm going to jail for life. Right, so that's a deterrent. Of course I can still kill you, but why would I be ruining my life? So life, liberty. I can't impinge on your actions as long as they're not infringing on mine. So you're free to act. So say you do something I don't like, as long as it's not stopping me from doing what I like, it's all good. And that's also a hard definition because people might say, but you offended me. But it's not, you see, you're offending me isn't stopping me from acting. So it's okay for you, freedom of speech, that's where freedom of speech comes from. And then pursuit of happiness is basically property rights, the ability to own your own labor, the fruits of your own labor. You agree, I'll work for you for this rate, and then you get paid and that's yours. You can choose what you want to do with it.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of the Declaration, aren't you?
Yeah, well, you see, this is where the history of Zimbabwe comes in. It was called Rhodesia before, and basically the Brits wanted to give it up, get out of Africa, and people there who were living there, they sort of followed suit with the Americans. You know, the Americans broke away from Britain. Um, we followed suit and lasted 15 years. There's a war. Eventually, it ended with Zimbabwean independence. And you know, it's another hot issue. And basically, if you say, I'm proud of what the Rhodesians did, you know, there's a significant portion of people who call you racist. But I think you've got to be able to say, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're not stopping me from acting, so if you're offended, that's fine.
Yeah, the right. I think the classic line is the right to life, liberty, and happiness, isn't it? So I've never understood that, man. I don't know how you can have the right to life.
It comes from a lot of it comes from John Locke.
Yeah. No, I've said
a lot of like Lockean language in there, you know.
We've looked into this at uni, my masters that I'm doing a lot, and I still don't understand. I don't understand how you can have a man in the ocean that is drowning and can't see land and is tired. There's no right to life. He's dead. I've seen both my kids born. They didn't come out with a piece of paper in their hand that awarded them the right to life. They had a thing in the hospital recently where the nurse hooked the nitrous oxide up instead of oxygen and killed the child. And you've no right to life that I can work out unless a person says it's a contract. I agree not to kill you if you don't agree, if you agree not to kill me or something like that. And if a person doesn't choose in, see, this is all very abstract. And I'm gutted at how weak this is when you really get into it. And I've always been disappointed with human rights that it doesn't seem to. The only way human rights has ever really made sense to me is that I heard Jordan Peterson say that at the end of the war, Second World War, that is, you do not have the right to make a lampshade out of human skin. Fuck that. You're never allowed to do that. And we got to fever pitch at the Nuremberg trials where we just said, I don't care that your commanding officer told you that you had to. You cannot kill 6 million people. And just at that level of intensity, yes, okay, I can make that understand that human rights probably works. But that thing where you go to uni and you say, sweetheart, and you get kicked out of uni because you offended someone or something like that.
That's taking it too far.
Yeah, it doesn't work there.
The freedoms you're taking it all. You want all the freedom, and you won't let other people be free. It's a balance. Because if you can't have absolute freedom, because if the person next to you has absolute freedom, they're going to take your freedoms away.
This is where I'm going to.
Where's the line?
You can have absolute freedom if you want to go live in a cave and eat dirt, but you'll never have an education, and so you'll never be able to fly to London.
Yeah.
And so you don't really have freedom.
I think what we'll need to do is we'll need to read. Have you read John Locke's treatise on government?
Yeah, second treatise on government. Yeah, it's over there somewhere. Okay. Yeah, I've got it.
So I've downloaded it to Kindle, but I just, always.
It's that
like,
crazy
I'm going to read
language.
it, and then you download it, and then you sort of never get around to it.
It's that ye olde English language. You almost can't read it.
It's almost quite religious language, but
and it's the first
read
book
a fair bit on natural law and very, very big ideas and like heavy ideas. You don't fuck with those ideas there.
Yeah, it's the first book that mentions love in marriage as well. I think that you should have a wife that you actually love. Before that, it was just that you just got a wife like you got a car or something.
I think it's, natural law is like, if the truth is out there and if you try and defy it, it'll come back and bite you.
We got to do a video on postmodernism because that's where that all goes, isn't it? Is there any truth? But you asked me what freedom was, and something like this. People say they want absolutely everything, but society will belt you up if you go too far with that. So
and then you don't get the benefit of being part of the society.
Correct. Yeah, but that's where I'm going with this. This is justice. So what we say is something like, what freedom will society let me have? Or we eventually learn to make the statement, why should society let me be free? And the answer is because I serve society by exercising my freedom the way that I do. So if my freedom is to be a serial killer, obviously society will take care of me real quick. If my freedom is to be what I am, what you are, a farmer, an accountant,
growing crops for people,
an accountant.
Yeah,
we want accountants, don't we?
Yeah,
something like that. Then yeah, sure, they'll have their freedom, but that's not really freedom. That's it's conditional freedom. You have to be useful. And so we as people, we go looking for the society. There's no such thing as a global society. We go looking for the society that lets me be freest.
Yeah.
So if I'm some hippie commune, so I go to live on a kibbutz in Israel back in the 60s or 70s. If I'm some sort of ruthless capitalist, and that's what I do with my freedom, I go to New York and become the CEO or something like that.
Yeah.
And then that's why we can't agree on justice, because obviously the person working in the kibbutz has a different idea of justice than the Fortune 500 CEO.
So of course you get, like you called it, social justice, right? Which is well, I'm offended and something's got to be done about this.
Everything that the
And
CEO would do would offend the kibbutz driver, and
yeah,
vice versa.
yeah,
That's why it's actually the tribes that are important. And this globalization is the whole problem.
yeah.
Trying to get the hippie commune guy to agree on the same sort of justice as the CEO,
It's
by
totalitarian.
definition, it will
Everybody's got
never
to be the
work.
same.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
exactly what it is. You have to have the same
we
level
all
of
have to be
justice.
oranges.
Donald Trump has to have the same opinion on justice as some 21-year-old green-haired feminist somewhere.
Yeah,
And that's fair enough.
having a
That's all
meltdown
she
on
knows,
campus.
working at JB Hi-Fi. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's all she knows. And it's fair enough that she thinks that. She's a product of her environment, and that's what she thinks. And Donald Trump's a product of his environment.
So basically, in current life, there's a lot of calls for social justice, but there's obviously legal justice. Do you think legal justice
Ah,
is close enough to where you would draw the line?
hmm. I'm sure we're going to pause the video at this point in time right now. The rule of law is a really good idea, and we've got an excellent example. Again, we said we wouldn't go here, but Me Too, hashtag Me Too, is a really
Yep.
good. That's something we're doing outside of the rule of law, right? We're not
Yep.
giving people the right to their own defense. We're not letting people face their accuser. I never voted in Alyssa Milano. Rose McGowan doesn't have an ombudsman, and these sorts of things are all very important when someone makes an allegation against you. If someone
Yep.
walked in this door right here, right now, and said you stole a car, Michael, I'd say fine, take me to the station. I
Take
know
me to
that
the cops, charge me.
take me, yeah, and
Yep.
I know that I get the right to my own defense, and I get to see the car that you allege I stole. I
Yep.
get my lawyer,
Yep.
and if the police doesn't take my opinion seriously, or if they just stick me in prison, there's what's the one where they let you out all the time? I'll think of it before the end of it.
Habeas corpus.
Habeas
Yeah.
corpus. And I would absolutely submit myself to that system.
Yep.
But this thing where someone just goes on Twitter and says, "I hate you."
You-
I mean, you stole a car.
You
No,
grabbed my booby.
something like that. Yeah, and I never did.
Or maybe
And
you did, but it
yeah,
was consensual.
something. Yeah,
And then maybe,
exactly.
yeah,
And that's completely with outside the rule of law, and that's a
that's
social justice
social
sort of thing.
justice.
And
But
this,
so why aren't these people? Why aren't they going to the police?
exactly, because it doesn't work. And that's why Me
Oh,
Too is
it doesn't work,
significant.
eh?
Because all these women are saying, I went to the police. I did. I swear to God. I went through the rule of law, and everyone said, you're lying, or we'll grill you for 3 days on the stand. And so it's not as though the rule of law
Okay.
is wrong. It's when it fails, what do? Just give up?
So
No,
maybe the
you go on
failures
Twitter.
of legal justice is creating
Oh, of
social
course.
justice.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it like that. It's
And
interesting.
coming back to what I was saying previously, someone who's, I'm going to use the example of like a green-haired 21-year-old feminist on campus who's never had any other experiences, and so she is the person that she is, which is fine because that's the experiences you would have. She has that feeling of justice, and she wants to see things change.
Yeah.
And the classical 70-year-old older person that's trying to say, like that father and son song by Cat Stevens, relax, take your time.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to be patient when you're young.
Yeah.
We can never agree on what justice is. And so I think the answer to the whole thing is that we need to have smaller communities with like young people, middle-aged people, older people all together all the time, and we're sharing our theories. And I think
But you see, because you're free and while you're young, you make mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes.
yeah, it's a great teacher. Shame
So,
and guilt are good teachers. Failure is a good teacher.
So
Regret. But
that's all fine.
Me Too is a good thing because it's like, okay, the 21-year-old feminist, it's her getting a chance to speak to Donald Trump, which she otherwise never would. Her voice isn't big enough. And so it's given older guys a chance to learn from the younger people. But I just really hope it's the other way around. I hope the 21-year-olds also get a chance. And the answer is smaller communities, because there ain't no 21-year-old feminist anywhere that's going to learn anything from Donald Trump because he's public enemy number one from the get-go. But she might learn from her grandfather or her priest or the guy that owns the JB Hi-Fi that she works at if they have a Christmas party or something. But it requires more than just this is a token old man, you must learn from him. There must be friendship or love or community or family and therefore trust, and therefore you'll take another person's point of view. Therefore, you'll understand another person's point of view. Therefore, you'll adjust your own theories of justice. Therefore, you'll fit better into your society. Therefore, freedom will make sense because you'll have the freedom to act in your society that you want to have, and freedom will make sense. And you won't have these difficulties of justice. But globalization is a big problem. I'm never going to understand a Palestinian's point of view.
That's where natural law sort of comes in. I don't think people, as much as they really want it, won't be able to get it going.
Globalization,
globalism, whatever you want to call it.
We'll all just become these soy boys.
It's already breaking down.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we'll just
Brexit and
our vitality will go away, and we'll just become these.
And people will fight against it, and we'll return it back to. Yep. So that's pretty interesting with justice and social justice. So do you know of people who did go to the police?
Oh no, they
Or
all say it. Like everyone says it. Like, it's a classic thing on the Twitter that a girl will say, "A man assaulted me." Someone will reply and say, "Well, why didn't you go to the police?" And everyone will say, "She probably did."
yeah, but did they, or did they for some
Yeah,
reason
you don't know.
decide to
Well, then that would
stay
be acting in
quiet?
bad faith again. Yeah, if you were just using the Me Too thing just to get ahead or get more
Well,
followers
that's
on
the
Twitter,
problem. Is there probably are genuine victims who maybe did go to the police, but I'm
millions
sure
of them,
there's also a lot of women
thousands of them.
who
Yeah,
wanted they want the role,
fame.
so they go, well, I'll let him knock the back out of me, and then I'll be the actress in the big movie. It's a
The
grey
back out
area.
of is that a Zim term?
I don't know where that's. I think it's Australia.
Is it? I've not heard it.
But
Fair enough.
anyway,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
so now you're mixing people of bad faith with people who are actually victims.
yeah. Oh, it's a clusterfuck.
It's
Yeah, I'm not
it's
saying
just
it's not.
it's
Yeah,
a fuck up.
but
Anyway, that's an interesting perspective
and we all know what
that
the answer
maybe
is. But
legal justice is failing, so this is giving rise
oh, definitely.
to
Yeah.
social justice.
Oh, feminism will tell you that every
Yeah,
day of the week. Yeah, when legal justice fails, what do? Just go home and get the shit kicked out of you by some guy? No, you
yeah,
do something. I
yeah,
mean, I can think of that myself. If I was a weak person living in a house with a strong person, and the police didn't save me, I mean, you'd kill them in self-defense or harm them in self-defense or something, wouldn't you? And then
yeah,
you
yeah.
just say, well,
You've got
prison's
to do
better.
something. Yeah, I know that's pretty interesting. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is libertarianism, which is the way I see it is it's like people who really understand economics.
Who
Uh,
really do understand
Yeah,
economics?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there's a lot of people who actually have no idea about it, but it sort of started out with free market capitalism, and they tried to solve social problems through economics. But obviously, everything's not an economic problem. But they, like they'll say, let people take drugs, because they're free, they can take drugs. It's not your problem. What would your take on should drugs be legal or should they be illegal?
yeah. My immediate like the hook that grabs me on this is the idea that morals shouldn't be commodities or people aren't commodities, and the
Yeah,
free market is great for money. And the free market is great for fruit and veg and probably wheat and milk and eggs, and you can make a long list of things, cars. But like the classic thing that the red pill says all the time is as soon as you put relationships in the free market and you go to that nightclub and you've got to say, hey, let me do whatever it is that I want. I'm a libertarian. If she
yeah,
consents, if he wants to, then that's fine. Once you think that through for 20 years, then you
mm,
get to the point in time that guys go to the nightclub and think, well, for her to like me, I have to be whatever it is that she wants me to
it's too
be.
hedonistic and it doesn't take
And
the
if
long term into account.
yeah, if what she wants me to be is a bad boy, then I must change myself into a bad boy. Thus, she'll like me. Thus, it's the free market. It's libertarianism. Everyone consented. It's fine. She wanted a bad boy. I became a bad boy, and that worked well. And no harm, no foul, and it works fine. But then you're left with the externality that we just created a generation full of Justin Biebers and Chris
Yeah,
Browns and James Dean's, Elvis Presley's. It's been going on for years. So
yeah, I'd pretty much agree with that.
we didn't allow the free market for relationships in the past because, and the flip side, it creates a generation of Britney Spears and Ariana Grande's and things because what do guys want? Pretty much a cheerleader. Guys want something like that,
And also, probably a lot of people who did take drugs when they were younger could go to regret it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then when they're older, they're against drugs. And I suppose you got to let. I'm all for morals
mm,
being coded into law.
yeah.
I mean, it's not just because heroin's not illegal doesn't mean you can't do it. You're taking a risk by doing it. But I suppose it discourages people from ever starting, which you know you might maybe when you're 21 you might go, why aren't drugs legal? But maybe when you get to 40 you go, thank God they were illegal because it discouraged me and I can see I'm better off for it.
That's exactly what I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
The other thing is, like in contract law or in free market economics, you assume that there's a legal entity, a corporation that has some directors, and they've exercised due diligence and they've acted in good faith for a proper purpose, and they've made the decision to enter into a contract. Perfect. But a 17-year-old drunk at a party isn't exactly
yeah.
that. And even though they say, I want what I want, you might say, right now you ain't an adult, or you're not thinking straight, or something. We're going to
that,
save you from yourself.
that's exactly it. Is I'm 27 now. I'm glad that my parents had a say over my life
Oh, yeah.
while I was a minor.
Yeah.
Because can
Thanks,
you
Mum. Thanks,
imagine
Dad.
where you would end up? You'd go off track and you'd never be able to get back on track.
No.
So
Yeah, well, that,
you kind of when you're a minor, you go, well, I should be able to do what I want to do. But I suppose you get a bit of hindsight and you go, thank God somebody who knew more than I did was at the AIDS.
In the US, if you break the law, you can't vote. And have you ever read the new Jim Crow? The book, The New Jim Crow?
No. You're right.
Oh, yeah, something else, I don't know. But there's some massive statistic of young African American males can never vote, and it's massive. It's huge because they broke the law at some point in time.
I didn't
And
know
the law
that.
says, oh, it's massive. And you say, yeah, libertarians say, just let people be free and do what they want. And I suppose they also say, make drug taking legal so you don't break the law.
Yeah.
But this thing where you just think, so what if I get arrested by the police? It's so what? I'll get out in bail. I'll get a suspended sentence. I had a couple of mates that got suspended sentences when I was young. Could have done prison time and they didn't.
Yeah.
And we went out and had a beer afterwards and laughed about it. So irresponsible, you know, like, right. And then, like, if they were American, they'd never vote again. And that's just a huge problem. You'd never run for politics. That's a big problem. So yeah, the idea that morals become commodities and you trade them and there's an open free market and things, it's got a lot of problems for me.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is I love economics, you know. And
you do, yeah.
But it's economics. It doesn't belong in politics.
Yeah.
Politics is a whole different beast. And you know, and then of course you got ethics and all of that and rule of law, and you got to let ethics sort out ethics. You can't bring economics in to try solve that. So now it's just, you know, good to compare libertarians to classical liberals, because a lot of people might, you know, not really know what the difference is.
Yeah, I think libertarians get a lot of legs having a shot at religion as well. Like that. Who's that guy? Is it Sam Harris or is it one of the guys?
Yeah.
The guy died recently. The guy that hates religion. Anyway.
Is that Dawkins?
Dawkins.
Did he die?
No, there's Jonathan. There's another one. Christopher Hitchens.
Hitchens. Yeah.
That's right. And these guys score huge points making these schoolboy arguments against religion. How could they have made the world in 7 days?
Yeah.
It's just so easy. I'm sure.
But also, you sort of wonder, are they doing it because they make money from it?
Oh yeah,
because it must get tiring just talking about the same. It's almost like they're trying to convince the whole world, and it's like that never happens. So why are you wasting your time?
I mean, guys
just move on to the next topic.
Guys like Immanuel Kant and I think Charles Darwin, I think they were religious as well. I mean, they knew as much about this as anyone. I do think libertarianism gets a lot of legs out of just taking easy shots at religion, and I don't respect it for that.
Yeah, personally, I think science came out of Christianity.
Yeah, I've read this. Yeah.
So, and then it's just basically turned back on its roots. So that's going to be an interesting, you know, that's you going into Nietzsche and Jordan Peterson, and
he's more interesting.
Staring into the void there. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting. I personally reckon Christianity, the values of Christianity gave birth to science.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Islam just got too modern and started attacking where it came from.
Islam had universities long before we did. The Chinese had printing press long before we did. It never went into science in their communities. It must have been Western Christianity that turned those things into the science that we have.
We'll have to do a video on religion and the differences between them, because
I think we'll have to get someone along to help us.
Thought that a religion's a religion and you can swap them out for whatever, and it's
not. No, definitely not.
The foundation blocks and the foundations are very different.
Very different.
Yeah. So I reckon that's been pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Now we know about Michael, so now we can take the piss out of him.
Your turn next. All right, guys.
Right, thanks.
See ya.
Cheers.